Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And we're discussing chapter 14, Scrolls.
14.
I had the S from Scrolls already on my tongue as I was saying the number.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. But chapter 14 has an epigraph that is a little excerpt beginning of a story from the Out Islands. This is from the Out Islander scroll, Icefire's Lair. And it's just detailing the beginning of it, basically following one specific fisherman who lives on an island that, if it's very clear, you can see as Levjal from that island. Mm-hmm. And even though he has a pretty good life, and all of his wife's and his mother's warn against going to Icefire for riches or granting wishes, you get what you deserve there. And even despite the warnings away from it, his oldest son is like, hey, but what if we did go there?
We would both be the richer for it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think the story is really interesting because there's so much, like, you can really tell that the culture is built around a matriarchy.
Yeah.
Because there's, like, Owen knew this well, for his mother had told him, and so had his wife and wife's mother. Like, that's the authority figures here, which I think is really cool to see. Also, I'd love to know how you pronounce the island they're on.
Yeah, because it's Fedois, so I almost want to say Fedois because it's very French. But also, I think I feel like personally that the Islands are based on a lot of Inuit culture. Okay. And I just don't know how you would pronounce that in a different language other than French.
Yeah, the OIS really feels French.
Fedois. It just feels wrong saying Fedois or Fedoy.
Fedoy. I guess Fedoy could be right.
Yeah.
No S, silent S. Fedoy.
Little doorstop there. Nice.
You know.
But there are rumors in this story that say, there, as all know, the dragon sleeps with a hoard of treasure scattered about him. Some say a bold man can go there and ask a favor of Icefire as he sleeps locked in a glacier's cold. And some say it is only a man both greedy and foolish who would do such a thing. For it is told that Icefire will give such a man not only what he asks, but what he deserves. And that is not always good luck and gold. And then they talk about how you get onto the island and how it's very treacherous because you have to go at low tide, go underneath the glacier to pop up, and then you only have a limited time on the island because then the high tide will come and crush your boat and you if you are trying to sail out of the island still.
Yes. And yeah, there's also, I think there's a lot to be learned from a culture in their fairy tales. And sort of what they prioritize and what they believe, what their like culture dictates as being good traits versus bad traits.
Right.
And I feel like that's really well done here because it is talking about because especially this culture seems to be warriors who are strong and have to brave the elements and want to be strong, but they are raiders, so you would think that they would find there to be a reason to go somewhere where there is treasure to be had if you're brave enough. And yet here it's not about that. It's about it's more focusing on how you should be more confident with what you have, or like comfortable with what you have. As long as you have enough to get by, that's enough. That should be enough.
Right.
And like, it's hubris to ask for more than that, because especially, I mean, this fisherman Owen and his wife, they have clams on the beach to the north and enough pasturage below the glacier that his wife could keep 3 goats of her own and a flock of many, even though she was a younger daughter. And she bore for them 2 sons and a daughter and helped him fish. They had enough, and it should have been enough for him. And so that's like really interesting too, just that like language of they had plenty enough to survive, and so that should be enough.
Yeah, this is probably also now told as if this was a true event in the past
Mhm.
as it's written down to be. It is now probably told as one of those cautionary tales that the mothers and the women of the mother house tells other people.
Yes, and I think this plays on the previous epigraph because it was like a note about how the woman who was writing the note last time was talking about how they were worried about the men losing their way and not
Oh, you thought it was
sticking to
a woman
tradition.
writing it down? I thought it was
Oh,
written from the perspective of a man who says, like, even though this knowledge is passed down, because I thought they meant the author mentioned something about them and their sons and like the
mm,
future sons of the thing might not
I
remember.
I guess
But I guess I
I
could have misinterpreted that from my own
I
bias.
yeah, I guess I just assumed it was a woman, but
Yeah.
it could have been a man. But
Either
either
way.
way, the message was that they feel as though that men in particular are going to lose the way of the mother home and lose their culture the more greedy they get. And so then it's interesting to have this tale that is a history to them. But I mean, you see that in cultures
Right.
here of like
Yeah.
a history that's kind of too hard to believe. Could be real. I don't know. I wasn't there. Um, but that's what this gives me. And I think it's really cool to have that in this and that we
Mhm.
get to read part of what seems to be a little bit of a fable.
Yeah, exactly. Like how you mentioned it's a mother home. It's not just a mother house. They made
It's
it
a
a
mother
mother
home.
home. But yeah, we basically just end it with Owen's eldest son who wants a bride who is above his station, a rich bride above his station. So the son is kind of whispering in Owen's ear, like, "Hey,
Mhm.
we can both be rich if we go there."
And interestingly, his son is 17
Yep.
when thinking about a bride. And I thought that's important to note because we know that Elliania was talking about how she's really young to be wed and do all this stuff. And since we don't have a look at their culture, we don't know what constitutes as a good age for marriage.
Right.
So it is interesting to have in this story that 17 seems to be about when they're starting to think about courting, if not already marrying.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know, I guess, where in the stage this son is. But
Right.
yeah, 12 compared to 17, or as in Six Duchies, this eldest son would be 18
Right.
and Eliania is 13.
True.
Or I guess almost 13. We don't know if
Yeah, I don't
her
know.
birthday has passed. So 11 to 17 and just about 13, I guess we'll call
Mhm.
her. But we start this chapter with the Out Islanders leaving.
Yes, which Fitz does not see firsthand.
Correct.
He's
Yeah.
telling us about this event because when we left off, he was watching the proclamation where Elliania and Dutiful were giving each other challenges.
And he is telling this in, again, it's a very typical structure, I feel like, that Robin Hobb has set up, especially for these Fitz books where things have happened off screen and Fitz is telling us how they happened until we catch up to the present where he is
Yes.
talking to Chade.
Yes.
So this interlude of catching up on events starts off with it seemed pretty calm and pretty regular sending off. He didn't envy them the weather because it's very, very, very early spring
Yes.
and basically still kind of end of winter. So the weather is bad, but the Outlanders seemed okay with everything and took it as due course. But he does know that Queen and Chade met with Arkin Bloodblade and Peter Blackwater, and they had talked into the early morning the next day following that formal final ceremony where they issued all the challenges to each other. The behavior of the wayward prince and Narcheska had doubtless been discussed, but more important, the prince's quest had now metamorphosed into one element of an extended visit to the Out Islands. Jade told me later that the slaying of the questionable dragon had not been discussed so much as the schedule for the prince to meet not only the Hetgird of the Out Islands, but to visit the mother house of Eliania's family. The Hetgird was a loose alliance of headmen and tribal chiefs who functioned more as trade negotiators than any sort of government. Eliania's mother house was a different matter. Chade told me later that Peter had seemed very uneasy when Blackwater had calmly assumed that it must be a part of Dutiful's visit to the Out Islands, almost as if he would have refused it if he could. The prince and his entourage would depart for the Out Islands in the spring. My private response to that was that it gave Chade precious little time for his information gathering. So we get a little bit more about the goings on and more political side of this. Yes, it was, all fiery quests. Let's go slay a dragon last
Right.
chapter. And this time it's like, okay, it's a political tour.
Right.
We're going to meet the leaders, finalize some of these trade deals. And then, I guess we have to go on this quest because we promised.
Right. And it's really interesting. I guess it seems as though Peter maybe took a back seat, but it's interesting to me that nobody seems to pay much heed to the ask about the dragon, despite surely Peter knowing that the dragon is really there. I mean, maybe not. It just feels like clearly this is something the Pale Woman would have wanted from this exchange, but
we know that Peter is not a very talkative person, and especially with Ark and Bloodblade in the room, he's going to want to speak up and be the leader. So I'm sure Peter just kind of took a back seat, and Chade noticed that he felt or looked uncomfortable when they mentioned the mother house.
Yes. And I guess also it doesn't matter if you believe it's real or not. You know that it's a task that has to be done. And we can tell that he really does not want this marriage to happen. Which is interesting that he hasn't sort of been won over to Dutiful, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, they're still kind of in a foreign country and with their backs against the wall with their family held hostage. So he's not going to try to make friends with the people they're being forced to
That's fair.
Make an alliance with, I don't think. Marrying off his niece too. But they departed. They kind of arranged that tour, and Fitz says, I wasn't a witness to any of that. I was more than happy to stay inside the castle and not go in that weather down to Buckkeep and back. I was cramped from spying the walls. And more importantly, Lord Golden is still saying that he's ill to be confined to his rooms, and so I didn't have any excuse to go. He also says, in the wake of the departure of the Out Islanders, many of the lesser lords and ladies of the Six Duchies began to leave the court also. The festivities and occasions of the prince's betrothal were over, and they had many stories to share with the folks at home. Buckkeep Castle emptied out like an upended bottle. And so he says the winter routine becomes a little bit more dull, everything's a little bit more empty, and it kind of suits him all right.
Right. And unfortunately, despite everybody else leaving in this like slow life happening, the Bingtown traders are staying.
Yes.
They're lingering on. And this meant that Lord Golden continued to keep to his room lest he be recognized, and that at any hour I might encounter Jack visiting with him. Propriety meant nothing to her. She had grown up rough, the daughter of fisher folk, and had kept the carefree ways of that people. Several times I met her in the halls of Buckkeep Castle. Always she grinned at me and gave me a jovial good day. So we get to know a little bit about Jack. She's from a fishing town.
Yeah, which also, again, begs the question of what's up with Clef's accent.
Yes, because they're from presumably
roughly the same area, but might be different.
Could be
duchies.
different parts of the coast.
Yeah.
Different duchies, yeah. But anyway, I just thought that was a fun detail of like, oh, she's from a fisherman town. And then I'm like, wait, so is Clef, and also from the same country. So I don't know.
Right.
But one day they're going the same way, and Jack speaks up and she glances about to make sure the hall was deserted, and then spoke in a low voice. I suppose this will get me into trouble, but I can't stand to see the two of you like this. I refuse to believe you don't know Lord Golden's secret. And knowing it, she paused a moment, then said quietly and urgently, open your eyes, man, and see what could be yours. Don't wait. Love such as you could have doesn't... I cut her off before she could say anything more. Perhaps Lord Golden's secret is not what you think it is. Or perhaps you've lived along the Jamalians for too long, I suggested, offended. At my sour look, she had only laughed. Look, she said, you might as well trust me. Lord Golden has for years now. Believe in my friendship for both of you, and know that, like you, I can keep a friend's secrets when they deserve to be kept. She turned her head and regarded me as a bird looks at a worm. But some secrets beg to be betrayed. The secret of undeclared love is like that. Amber is a fool not to voice her feelings for you. It does neither of you any good to ignore such a secret. She stared into my eyes earnestly, her hand still gripping my wrist. I don't know what secret you refer to, I replied stiffly, even as I wondered uneasily just how many of my secrets the fool had shared with her. At that moment, 2 serving maids appeared at the end of the hall and continued toward us gossiping merrily. And then she says, of course you don't. And you won't even see what's put right in front of the table before you. Men, if it was raining soup, you'd be out there with a fork. She slapped me on the back, and then our ways parted, much to my relief. I love Jack. She's so funny. But this is really hard for Fitz. He doesn't love... I mean, I can see why you wouldn't love being told, like, trust me, I'm really close friends with our mutual friend. She trusts me. What about you?
Yeah.
To be like, okay, like, how much? What does that mean on your guys' relationship? Because I thought I trusted Fool too. And
right.
so...
And they're coming at this from, again, opposed viewpoints that they don't understand from each other, right?
Yes.
Like, Jack is convinced that Amber is the real personality, that Beloved is a woman, that it is just Amber.
Yes.
And Amber is taking on the guise of Lord Golden, where Fitz is coming from, okay, the Fool is the person.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's not your real name. Duh, I gave you that name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's Beloved. Cool. Oh, wait, you can pose as other people and you're a consummate actor. Great. Wait, you have another personality I didn't know, another life, another people you're sharing secrets with. So you took on the guise of a woman, but you're actually, in Fitz's mind, a man.
Right.
So they're coming at this like, yeah, Jack's like, yeah, I know Lord Golden's secret. Yeah, because Jack thinks that secret is that it's actually Amber, a woman.
Yes.
And Fitz is like, you don't know Lord Golden's secret. It's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
Because Fitz is convinced that no, both of those are fake personalities, and it's just the Fool or Beloved underneath.
Right.
So neither of them are trying to understand or think they understand what the other person is hinting at. And Fitz is very upset at this because Jack isn't even like trying. And it kind of needles him a lot and bugs him a lot. And it seems to me in this reading, in this chapter, that encounter prompts him to think more darkly on the situation between him and Beloved.
I think it definitely riles him up. I wonder, though, because Jack is so confident that she understands what's going on and she knows everything and she's well trusted by Amber, but yet doesn't know everything. There are clearly things missing from what she knows, especially to Fitz's knowledge. Why wouldn't Fitz then think, oh, okay, Amber's character is that she had a crush on somebody because women be women, you know? I don't know. But
the Fool didn't deny it.
The
Fool
that's fair.
Didn't defend him, didn't deny it. But that confirms his thought that, like, okay, it's real. And like Beloved says, I believe that Fitz also kind of had that thought deep down and never confronted it himself.
Right.
That Beloved had some sort of feelings for Fitz. So I think Fitz knows it to be true, doesn't want to confront it at all.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. But I'm thinking, like, in my mind, okay, it's hard to talk about that. I want to just start by saying I do believe that Fool does have feelings for Fitz. Like, I think there are romantic feelings there. However, putting that aside, if you look at the fact that Jack doesn't have all the pieces, Amber is a female character that Beloved was playing who said that she had feelings for Fitz. Why wouldn't Fitz look at that as, like, I know that there is obviously, like, something simmering there that he is like, there probably are feelings there, but why wouldn't he look at that as, oh, this was my friend the persona was a woman who was in love with a man. She lied to this person, to Jack, to pretend to be Amber and made up details like I have a crush on a childhood friend. Or maybe that part was a little bit true, but it's not like true enough that I need to do anything about it. Like, why? In my mind, why does that have to mean that then Beloved gave up all these secrets? Like, I think,
Well, Jack is implying that, right?
but is she? Like, Jack is wrong about what she's implying, so that should tell Fitz that she doesn't know anything. So nothing was given up anyway. Like, why would Beloved lie about so much, but only tell the truth where it concerned Fitz and Fitz's background, and tell all these secrets about Fitz that could hurt Fitz? You know what I mean? Like, their friendship is so deep and has gone on for so long. Why would he?
Because he doesn't know his friend anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's blindsided him. He, meaning the fool, has a whole nother persona that Fitz didn't know about. This is something fundamentally changed about this person in front of him. It's no longer his confidant, his best friend, as it was, you know? So he doesn't know whether Beloved is being true in any of their other interactions, right? His foundation was shaken. He's so like blindsided by this, as we've discussed in that previous chapter too.
Well, and I understand that at first, like, for sure, I think that was a shock. There was a lot to like process there. A lot was going on, but it just feels like every little tidbit of more information we get about how Jack is acting, what Jack is saying, what they believe, it feels like there is no indication that anything private of Fitz's life has been shared. There is no indication that Jack has any idea who Beloved or the Fool is, and that there is just like a lot that Jack doesn't know, which I would therefore inference to mean that Beloved is still my friend who has kept my secrets and just used a small aspect of themselves in this new character. So anyway, I feel like it's really, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I feel like we can easily make those assumptions as a third party, but Fitz is in there with all the emotions, you know? I don't think he can remove himself to that kind of third person perspective that we can.
Well, I mean, I guess I would hope that he could have more faith in his friend. And that's asking a lot of Fitz, who has been betrayed by everybody, who had the rug pulled out from under them, I guess. But it just feels like if you love this person, even just platonically, if you love this person and you have trusted them for so long and they're the closest person to you, why then would you not be able to, like, it's been several days, a couple weeks. We don't really know exactly how much time has passed, but at least a week, if not more. And like, there's no thinking about like, hey, we actually have had a lot of trust. I can just go to this person and ask. Instead, it's like fully shutting down. And again, I realize this is Fitz and he has a lot of trauma. And I think partially it is because it's a trauma response of his trust has been broken and he can't, even though it might not have actually been broken, in his mind, the fact that it might have been is enough to shut him down and believe it and not look at it in any further, because it hurts too bad to think that maybe it was real. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, I guess. I think
you're making sense.
Okay.
But do you think his trust has been broken?
I don't think it has been. Oh, I don't think it should be. But I also, I feel that way because I am a rereader. I know what happens. I know.
I think his trust has been broken by Amber. Because Amber, as Beloved went to a different country and offered up, even though Beloved thought that these worlds were never going to combine.
Yeah.
The people would never meet, even though they're prescient in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Beloved still made inferences and straight up depicted Fitz on the figure of a ship that is going to last, presumably, forever.
Yeah.
And told about the person or hinted about the figurehead to the literal captain of the boat,
Yeah.
Althea, and her friend who is from the same country as this person. Like, that is dangerous to carve a farseer around a Six Duchies person, first of all.
That's true.
Because according to Fitz, they're very recognizable, but he has a broken nose and stuff, and he's not, whatever.
I mean, they're very recognizable, maybe to nobility,
right,
is what I would say. But yeah,
that's fair. But like in general, that's dangerous. But also just kind of, I don't know. I know that Beloved doesn't spill secrets like Fitz is thinking.
Right.
However, just the implications and like the actual care that Beloved usually takes around Fitz was missing and is lacking in Amber, I feel like.
That's fair.
Because I feel like they felt they were removed. Like they were felt that in that world that they were a little bit safe to crack open the layers of their other personalities while protecting themselves still. And it was not the case. And that's partially why I think also that the Beloved acted the way that they did and kind of shut down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there was a breach of some sort of implicit trust in their friendship there.
Okay.
I mean, not as obviously egregious as Fitz thinks, but it's also the implication of a relationship and then not denying it as well. Because Jack, even though Fitz doesn't know Jack, I feel like Fitz can get the idea of Jack. And Jack seems like the person that would go back to that potential ship and then just talk.
That's fair. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, Jack for sure is coming back from this trip being like, guys, you will never believe who I met.
Right. Although I think
his name is Tom.
Jack gets roped into tasks for Chade, I think, and goes and visits the Out Islands. I believe we get epigraphs from Jack later on of like scrolls that she sent back.
Interesting.
I think. I'm not positive on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's my idea on it. Like, it's obviously not good on either side. There's obviously miscommunications, and that's why this is. And I think somebody wrote in and pointed out that it is so frustratingly realistic in that they're nuanced characters, and there's not like one side to root for and one side not to. Because on the outset, Fitz is being homophobic in his ideas of like this implies that this is gross, whatever. However, if you look into it, like it's all informed by what they have gone through previously.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, like just because the idea itself is rooted in that like sort of homophobic, like, ew, gross, yucky, two boys, ew, doesn't mean that there's not merit to why he is upset. Mm-hmm. Like,
also, I want to point out quick before we move on that Fitz saying to Jack that maybe you've lived among the Jamalians for too long does imply that all of Six Duchies kind of feels that way about gay relationships. So I thought that was just interesting to kind of point out as well. Yeah,
and that is really interesting, like you said, because also I guess Bingtown isn't Jamalia, because I was going to say Bingtown seems to not be okay with gay people. And it seems like it's a Chalcid thing.
I mean, this is the same sort of stereotypes that Jamalians have about the Six Duchies, that they're barbarians, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure Six Duchies are like, Jamalians are like way too loose about moral things.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It's just stereotype stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think, I don't know, I guess it's interesting to think about whether or not carving the face of Fitz was a breach of trust. And like, I don't know how I feel about it, because on the one hand, I understand that Six Duchies is very far away, and it seems like there has not previously been a ton of trade between Bingtown and the Six Duchies. So why would they ever cross paths? But even if that's the case, it's not like there's no trade between Chalcid and Jamalia and Bingtown and Six Duchies. Like, there's going to be times when people from the duchies are in contact with live ships, like the traders at least.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I never thought about it as something that could be taken negatively, but I
From
guess I've
Fitz's
never
point
heard.
of view, I think it is. Like it's just
Yeah.
he wanted to be left alone. He wants to be kind of out of that spotlight. He's not comfortable there, and it's literally carved onto an immortal talking
Yeah.
figurehead.
Yeah. That's fair. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess it is like a personal thing. I don't know. I feel like if I found out one of my friends had carved my face into a ship figurehead, but it was like with somebody not have very little chance of running into, I'd mostly be offended that they didn't tell me ahead of time.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't care that they did it, I guess.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, but I can see how other people could potentially be upset about that. I don't, especially somebody as private as Fitz.
Well, this encounter does bother Fitz quite a bit, and he says, I began to long to have things out with the fool. Like an aching tooth, I jiggled over and over what I would say to him. The frustration was that he excluded me from his bedchamber, even as he seemed to welcome Jack in for private talks. Not that I rapped at his door and demanded entrance. I had been maintaining a sullen silence toward him, waiting hungrily for him to demand just what ailed me. The problem was that he did not. He seemed focused elsewhere. It was as if he did not notice my silence or my surliness. Is there anything more provoking than waiting for someone to open the lowering quarrel? My mood became ever darker. That Jack believed the fool was some woman named Amber did nothing to soothe my irritation. It only made the situation even more bizarre. In vain, I tried to distract myself with other mysteries.
And this is annoying to me because Fitz is like, I shouldn't have to be the one to bring this up, even though he's the one that's hurt and it's his feeling. Like, I do a little bit. Okay, this is hard. I feel like because Beloved has been hiding away and is clearly afraid of this big town thing, it's a little bit on Fitz to say, hey, what you did hurt me. But I'm also all for communication, and I think it's not fair for Fitz to wait for his friend to notice that he's in a bad mood and ask before he says something. I also know that Beloved knows that Fitz is upset and
that's the problem I have with it.
Also should say something.
That's the problem I have with it because it's obvious from the first scene that Beloved knows that this hurts Fitz's feelings and that Fitz is upset about it.
Yeah.
And yet has been ignoring it completely.
But also I feel like, spoiler alert, in a page and a half, Fitz is gonna do the exact same thing to Dutiful. Like, whenever the other person is way more upset, it is easier to be like, I'll let them cool off, and when they're ready, they'll come to me.
Yeah.
And Fitz is not going to come, and which, whatever. But I do feel like it's fair to be like, okay, he's clearly upset. I'll give him some time to think about it. And then after it goes on for a while, you're like, okay, why isn't he coming to me? Like, I don't know. It's a weird.
Yeah.
It also, Beloved should come forward and say, hey, I noticed you're upset. I know what I did upset you. Let's talk about it. That also should happen for sure. But I think we're with Fitz right now. And so I'm going to say, I think it's ridiculous to be like, I can't wait for him to ask what's wrong so I can really lay into him. Say it with your whole chest then, Fitz. Go ahead, go up to him and say it. Don't wait.
It's very teenager.
It is very teenager. Grow up.
But he tries to distract himself with other things for the moment. And we move on in this chapter from his kind of nagging issue with the fool, which is another little hint that it's going to blow up in the future. But Laurel is missing. She's gone, he says. Not necessarily missing, but she is no longer around Buckkeep.
And there's rumors that she's gone to visit her family.
Yeah.
So then, under the circumstances, Fitz doubts it. And he finally asks Chade what's going on. And Chade says it was not my concern if the queen had decided to send her huntswoman out of harm's way. When I asked where, he gave me a scathing look. What you don't know is less danger for you and for her. And so then that sort of piques Fitz's interest because he's like, oh, has more been happening that I don't know about? And Chade has to admit that he isn't 100% sure because Laurel went to the queen one night
For a private audience.
For a private audience, and then when she left, the queen was sending her away. So Chade doesn't actually know what's going on. I mean, he probably knows where she went and some of it.
Chade is also upset here because he says that Kettrican gave her some foolish promise that it would remain secret between the two of them. And of course, Kettrican is keeping that secret.
Yes. So he's annoyed because he doesn't know what was said in that meeting. But he does know that there has been some more things that have popped up. And he's really weirdly against sharing it with Fitz. Fitz really has to pull teeth to get this out of him. And there keeps being a little bit more every time Fitz thinks the conversation is over. So later, Fitz will talk to Chade again about the piebalds, and we learn that there actually is some stuff going on that Fitz doesn't know about. But for now, with this conversation, he's very sort of blasé about it and acting like, yeah, obviously something happened, but I don't know. And then Fitz doesn't really press much more into it.
Fitz does ask if there's any word on Lodwine and his followers, and Chade says there's rumors, and more than enough rumors to probably confirm that Lodwine has fully healed and is resuming leadership of the Piebalds, but there's also rumors that there might be a dispute if he still has the strength or the right to rule the Piebalds. And Fitz hopes that it's not the case, but probably Lodwine is leading and back in the game.
And then we find out that Fitz isn't the only angry person in Buckkeep.
Yep.
Because Prince Dutiful is also following in his biological father's footsteps and ignoring a problem when he's angry. Fitz says that the first morning after the incident of
the challenges,
and Dutiful realizing that there is a skill command on him from Fitz, that first morning he does not show up to the skill meeting. And so Fitz sort of is like, okay, well, he had a late night, it was a big deal, and an early morning, and there's a bunch of stuff happening, whatever. But then 2 more mornings happen where nobody shows up, and he's like, okay, so he's just angry and he's not coming. And then he starts thinking about, like, well, that's fair that he's upset. You know, how would I have felt if I had found out that Verity had given me a skill command to be loyal? I knew too well how I felt about Skillmaster Galen fogging my mind and masking my skill talent from me. Dutiful had a right to both his anger and his royal contempt of me. I'd let them run their course. When he was ready, I'd give him the only explanation I could, the truth. I had not meant to bind him to obey me, only to keep him from attempting to kill me. I sighed at the thought and bent over my work again. And that annoyed me because he literally just talked about how he's not going to be the first one to go to Beloved. Beloved has to come to him because Beloved did the wrong. And then here he's the one who did the wrong. And he's like, well, I guess I better let the guy that's angry come to me. That's why I have more of an issue of him not going to Beloved's door and saying, hey, this frustrated me, because clearly he thinks that's what should happen when somebody's mad. I don't know. I'm just annoyed at that whole situation. So
It was evening and I was sitting up in Chade's tower. I had been there since afternoon waiting for Thick. It was yet another meeting that he had missed. As I had pointed out to Chade, there was little he or I could do if the half-wit would not voluntarily come to meet me. Still, I had not wasted my time. In addition to several of the older and more obscure skill scrolls that we were deciphering piecemeal, Chade had given me 2 old scrolls that dealt with Icefire, the god's rune's dragon. They both dealt with legends, but he hoped I could sift whatever seed of truth had begun them. He had already dispatched spies to the Out Islands. One had sailed secretly aboard the Narcheska's vessel, ostensibly working his way across to visit relatives there. His true mission was to reach Eslevjal, or at least to discover as much about that isle as could be learned, and to report back to Chade with it. The old man feared that having committed himself to the quest, Dutiful must actually go. But he was determined the prince would go well prepared and well accompanied. I myself may go with him, Chade had informed me at our last chance encounter in the tower. I had groaned, but managed to keep it a silent one. He was too old for such a trip. By an amazing effort of will, I managed to keep those words to myself also, for I knew what would follow any protest. Who, then, do you think I should send? I was no more in favor of visiting Eslevjal myself than I was for Chade going, or Prince Dutiful for that matter. I kind of found that a little bit funny at the end of that paragraph because all three of them end up going.
Yes. Yeah.
But he's sitting in Chade's tower, deciphering these Icefire scrolls. Eventually, pushes one aside because it is a lot more dull than the skill scrolls are. He is thinking that yes, it's interesting, but it's not really useful.
Right. Fitz is under the impression that this dragon doesn't exist. Like, he's operating under the idea that there's no way. Like, he sort of looked into it at first. I think he went in thinking it's not real, went in and had his bias confirmed. He says, from what I knew of our stone dragons, and even from what the fool had told me of Bingtown dragons, it seemed highly unlikely to me that there was a dragon asleep in the glacier on Out Islander Isle. For far more likely that this, quote, slumbering dragon was fancifully blamed for earthquakes and glaciers calving. Calving?
Probably calving. Besides, I'd have enough dragons for a time.
So yeah, so Fitz is very like, well, it doesn't matter anyway. None of this is real.
I agree with him that it is highly unlikely that a dragon has been under the ice asleep for a long time.
Why?
Right?
Magic exists in this world. Why is it highly unlikely? He can literally make people think things are real that aren't there, but a dragon in the ice is not real. Okay.
Well, because dragons weren't a thing until like 10 years ago, you know?
But like,
so I mean, if I was in that world, I'd be like, it is highly unlikely that a giant animal that is alive and breathing and has blood flowing is still alive after however many years buried under a glacier.
I don't know. Magic exists. Why couldn't it be real? I'm Team Chade. Like, magic is real. Who knows what's possible? Let's push the limits, you know? Like, I don't know. It's just crazy. I also feel like he is in such a bad mood that he just isn't doing research fully.
He says also that the veiled Bingtowner still menaced his sleep as well. So that's why he's also sick of dragons. So
yes.
He's still having a tough time resting.
Yeah.
Not going well for Fitz right now.
Right. And not only is he having trouble because of the Bingtowners, but also because there is a new threat that has come through the castle. His eyes fall on this upturned bowl that has the body of a dead rat, and that rat is most likely a wit companion to a piebald. He doesn't know for sure it's for a piebald in particular, but it is definitely a wit companion, and the body of the rat he had to fight Gilly for, because in the middle of the night he heard a screaming and a wail and a loss, like a mourning loss sound that woke him from his sleep. And he says that usually things like rats or just small vermin that are killed go like a pop in the night. It's not, there's like
a popping bubble.
A popping bubble. Yes, thank you. And that this was too deep. This had to have been an animal that was connected through wit.
Yeah, only a human bonded to a creature could have given such a roar of dismay, outrage, and sorrow over a creature's death. And he was jolted awake by it and kind of was reminded of the loss of Night Eyes as well. But yeah, like you said, he had to kind of fight Gilly for it because Gilly is the one who killed it in the passageways of the walls. And it is a very, very large, very glossy, heavily like groomed and nice looking rat. He says he can't prove it, of course, but his suspicions were strong. And he had saved it to show to Chade to warn him.
It also says that he's woken up in the middle of the night by this and that he doesn't want to risk talking to the fool, so he goes and stays. But like 3 paragraphs ago, he says he's been waiting there since the evening when he was supposed to have his skill lesson with Thick. So I'm not really sure. I don't know. I feel like it's worded as though he went to bed, woke up from this scream, and is now still up.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was still up. I think he went to the room and grabbed the rat and put it under this bowl, and then maybe did some other things during the day, and then went back up in the afternoon.
Okay.
And is waiting for Chade. So because it says he had been there since afternoon, but this was obviously the night before. And yeah, he says he was loath to wake the fool. So went up to the tower.
So he turns away from the previous scroll with the Icefire legends and turns instead to a more challenging scroll to decipher.
Yet more satisfying to work on as well.
Yes. Chade believed the two scrolls were part of the same work based on the apparent age of the vellum and the style of lettering used. I believed they were two separate works based on the choice of words and the illustrations. Both were faded and cracked, with portions of words or whole sentences unreadable. Both were in an archaic lettering that gave me headaches. Beside each scroll was a clean piece of vellum, with Chade's and my line for line translation of the two. Looking at them, I realized that my handwriting predominated now. I glanced at Chade's last contribution. It was a sentence that began, "The use of elf bark." I frowned at that and found the corresponding line in the old scroll. The illustration beside it was faded, but it was definitely not elf bark. The word Chade had translated as elf bark was partially obscured by a stain, but squinting at it, I had to agree that elf bark did seem the most likely configuration of the letters. Well, that made no sense, unless the illustration did not pertain to that part of the text, in which case the piece I had translated might be all wrong. I sighed. And then Chade comes in. That is my dream night. Just touching old scrolls and copying them over to more legible
Trying to
writing.
make them understandable or decipher things in there. I'm guessing he's talking about Delvin bark in the scroll. That's the Out Island version of elf bark. I think it is the same plant, but grown to adapt to a hardier client. And earlier, Fitz says when he's talking about elf bark that the most potent is usually in like the harsher climates.
Yeah.
So it is much more potent there. I remember, I think it's like a Delvin bark, like bread or like dark cake or something like that. Infused one that Fitz eats, and then his skill is completely gone for a long time. So
good memory.
Yeah. I'm guessing that is what it is, though, which is interesting because these are skill scrolls from the Six Duchies area. But
right. But we know that the Farseers originated from the Out Island. So maybe a really long time ago there were Out Islanders who could skill. Maybe they still have them.
True.
Who knows?
True. I mean, Kebble raw bread.
Yeah. So I don't know. And I also feel like it would make sense that scholars of any type would be willing to trade information.
Right.
So like if there is an equivalent of a skill master on the Out Islands, they would be in contact with the skill masters at Buckkeep being like, so what do you know? Let's trade ideas. Feels very professor-esque.
Yeah, but remember, skill masters are under the behest of the royal line, and they might not want to share trade secrets with neighboring countries that they have been raided by and raid back frequently.
I mean, yeah, you can't tell trade secrets. You're not going to give the atomic bomb recipe, but you can give a bread recipe, you know? Like, I don't know. I feel like academics are good about knowing what can and can't be shared.
As you mentioned, Chade does enter, swinging aside the wine rack, and Thick is following him, bringing a tray of food and drink. "Good evening, Tom," Chade greeted me. "Evening, master." "Dog stink," Thick echoed him. "Don't call me that." "Good evening, Thick. I thought you and I were going to meet here earlier today." "Forgot," he said with a shrug, but his little eyes narrowed as he said it. So I wanted to make note of that quick. Chade, make sure to say Tom this time.
Yes.
But remember, he has said Fitz chivalry in front of Thick before.
Yes.
So. But Fitz is looking at Chade being like, yeah, see, like, I can't help him and meet him if he's not going to come and meet me. Can't help him. And Fitz turns to Thick and says, "Next time you bring up wood for the fire, could you bring an extra load? Sometimes in the evening it gets quite cold up here." Cold dog stink. The thought reached me clearly, but he simply stood and stared at me slackly as if he had not understood my words. Thick. 2 loads of firewood tonight. All right? Chade spoke to him a bit more loudly than was needed and saying each word clearly. Could he not sense how much that annoyed Thick? The man was simple but not deaf, nor stupid, really. Thick nodded slowly. 2 loads. You could go get it right now, Chade told him. Now, Thick agreed. As he turned to go, he gave me a brief glance from the corner of his eyes. Dog stink. More work. So, as he leaves, Fitz waits till he leaves and says, he doesn't try to assault me anymore with the skill. He just uses the skill to insult me privately because he knows you can't overhear. I don't know why he dislikes me so much. I've done nothing to him. And Chade's like, well, you gotta get over that because the prince needs a coterie, and this is our only other skill candidate. So you need to train him because he needs help on this quest, on this journey, even if it's just Thick to draw strength from. Court Thick, Fitz, and win him. We need him. So it's an interesting little thing. Again, kind of a rehash of previous conversations. There's not a lot of progress there.
Yes.
But at least Thick is not trying to attack Fitz anymore.
Yeah, so that is progress. But it is, I feel like Fitz's feelings towards Thick are so interesting because on the one hand, we have moments like earlier where he's like, why is Chade acting like Thick is deaf? Like, just say what you want. It's annoying him that you're talking to him like a baby. He's still a man. But then on the other hand, he's like, ugh, I hate Thick so much. He's stinky and weird.
We get a lot more of that in the next couple pages.
Yeah, and it just feels a little bit odd. I mean, I don't know. Two things can be true, but it just feels like kind of weird that on the one hand, he is kind of accepting of the fact that Thick is different and has different needs, but that doesn't make him less of a person. But at the same time, feeling like fundamentally Thick is too dumb to understand to be taught and is too different to be taught.
But we'll talk about that, like I said, in a couple pages because he gets more into those thoughts there. But for now, Thick has left, and Chade is inquiring after the Icefire scrolls. And Fizz is like, no, I had to leave those off for now. I don't think we're going to find much useful facts in them, because it just talks about how they're very vague warnings about, like, earthquakes and things like that, and the Out Islanders saying that's why you shouldn't anger the dragon. And Chade says, nevertheless, you should finish reading them. There might be something useful in there, some hidden mention of a detail that could be useful.
And he says, I doubt it. Okay, what is Fitz's deal with not caring about the little details? And maybe this bothers me because I'm like Chade and that I think you need to know all of the details to get the bigger picture. And Fitz very clearly is not. He's like, no, I've made my decision. This is pointless. I don't need to waste time. I'd rather go wider reaching than like get into the nitty gritties of what's here. And it is so annoying to me because he does this to Beloved too. Beloved says, tell me every detail of what happens. And then Fitz constantly is like, oh, well, this is just a little detail and it's not important. And it always is the little details that are the important part. That is the thing that strikes like the ideas or the
plot
understanding. Yes, I know, but it bothers me so bad. And he's like, I don't need to read this. It's boring.
It does sound like he pretty much finished most of at least one scroll because he talks about the full story of like, yeah, it's just people blaming human actions and how you behave on natural disasters.
But also just because the first couple are doesn't mean the last are all the same.
No,
so
I agree with you.
I don't know. I'm just annoyed that he does this, so it's bothering me more than usual.
He asked Chade if he thinks there even is a dragon. Or might not this be Elliania's ploy to delay her marriage by sending the prince off to slay something that doesn't exist? I am satisfied that there is some sort of creature encased in the ice on Eslevjal Isle. There are a number of passing mentions of it being visible in some of the very old scrolls. A few winters of very deep snowfalls and an avalanche seem to have obscured it, but for a time, travelers in that area would go far out of their way to stare into the glacier and speculate on what they were seeing inside it. I leaned back in my chair. Oh, good. Perhaps this will be more of a test for shovels and ice saws than for a prince and a sword. A smile flickered briefly over Chade's face. Well, if it comes to moving ice and snow swiftly, I think I've come up with a better technique, but it still needs some refinement. So that was you on the beach last month. And again, we get a little hint at Chade's extracurricular experiments where there was a lightning flash, but there was no lightning in the sky. And there was a big crater and debris in the beach. And Chade just responds, on the beach? Let it go, I conceded, almost with relief. I had no wish to be included in his experiments with his exploding powder. Just funny.
On the beach. It's even more funny because you know that it probably was him. I guess it could have been Rosemary.
It's definitely Chade.
Chade loves that.
This is Chade's experiment since Fitz was a boy, you know? But also, in there, Chade tells Fitz information that Fitz did not have before, that there are credible reports of something encased in ice.
Yes.
Fitz is literally going off of Elliania saying, there is a tale
as we
of
all
a dragon,
know.
as we all know. And then these two scrolls that mention it as a cataclysm.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. See, you have to read all the scrolls to get all the information.
Well, he didn't know there were other scrolls. That's why.
Well, I'm saying he didn't read all the stories in the scrolls. Maybe they're later. I don't know. Whatever. And again, even if it's a stone dragon that just like landed weird and I was whatever. I'm letting it go. He doesn't believe in the dragon. It's fine. He's allowed to have his own opinion. But Fitz is sort of like, oh, all right, whatever. Maybe there's something in there, but he still doesn't believe it's a dragon.
I think you just want to be mad at Fitz for that.
I am mad at Fitz for that. We live in a magic world. He knows dragons exist.
I think it is very reasonable for him, before Chade says that there is something encased there, to think it is highly improbable that there is a live dragon under the ice. And when Fitz says, I believe there is something encased there, he's like, oh, okay. So, I don't know.
No, I don't think it's reasonable. I think clearly the stone dragons had to be made to look like something in the past.
Nessie is swimming around.
Nessie
somewhere.
is real and I believe in her. As you should too if you believe in women. I support women, just like Nessie.
But Chade changes the subject here and brings up Prince Dutiful's skill lessons, because Chade is focused on this quest and how the prince must be prepared, and Fitz starts to deflect and being like,
he starts to straight up lie.
No, he starts to deflect because he says the truth of like, I don't want him to skill because of the Bingtown like delegation around. We're just translating, and then he's like, why am I doing this? I'll just say like he hasn't come for the last 3 times. And he does, and then Chade's like, well, I gotta correct that right away. I'll take steps to correct that young man. Regardless of how ruffled his feathers are, he had best put himself to that task. Tomorrow he will be there. I will arrange that he will be able to spend an extra hour with you each morning and not be missed. Chade's going to take it into his own hands to fix all of that. And then he decides that's done with and then moves on to Thick. Like, hey, you need to teach Thick. Like, it needs to happen. Speaking of the skill.
Right.
And he suggests bribes. And I think we'll stop it there for now. We got a lot left in this chapter, a lot left to discuss. So sorry to kind of cut it off in the middle there.
Yeah, we keep having deep thoughts in the middle of these.
Incredible thoughts.
Incredible thoughts for our incredible minds. Do you think that we are getting more long-winded as we go, or there is just more nuance to talk about every time?
Man, I don't know, because I think we had a lot of part 1 and part 2s in live ships because there was lots of point of views, but now it's just Fitz. This is like over 20 pages, this chapter, but we've had a lot longer chapters, so I don't know if we're just reading more, if I'm just reading more, or if we're just going on more tangents, or since we're later in the series, we have more to talk about. But this is a section of the book that has a lot of big feelings for Fitz and
That's
a lot
true.
of kind of character moments that he's negotiating and navigating. So I feel like maybe that's why. Either way, we're going to pause it there for now. Thank you.
Let us know.
Yeah. Thank you
what
for
you
tuning
think.
in and let us know what you think. All right, isfitshappy@gmail.com, or you can go to isfitshappy.com and find us on all of our social medias. We're at Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Reddit. Just DM us, comment on any of our posts. We're anywhere you can think of.
At isfitshappy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, time for the best part, for what you guys have brought to our attention.
Yeah, but of course, as always, we want to give a huge shout out and a huge thank you to everyone who has supported us on Ko-fi. We have Alex G this time. Thank you so much, Alex.
Shout out, Alex. Thank you
for supporting us on Ko-fi. And of course, as always, continued support from Neva, Anna, Degenhart, Zakita, and Simon. Your heroes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. We really do appreciate the help. But that being said, we're going to talk about some ideas that you guys have brought forward, starting first with a Facebook message.
Blue Sky. Let's start with Blue Sky.
Yeah, you're right. We're going to start first with Blue Sky. Sorry.
Already deviating from the plan, Emma.
We make a plan every time, and most of the time
you make the plan every time.
I do make the plan every time, and I still sometimes mess it up. Okay, so so like originally scripted, we're going to talk first about Blue Sky. Listener Simon wrote in to say, so happy to have an episode this week, even if it's pretty bleak sequence of events.
Yeah, it is bleak. And also, again, sorry that we missed some weeks. I know you guys will understand that we miss weeks. I just have to say it as well. So
it does. Yeah, it feels bad when we do. Yeah. But
it's just, it's been busy. We've been doing stuff.
We've had a lot packed into the summer and the end of summer. And
honestly, we have not been great podcasters. We've been doing this week to week, and we don't have like a batch of a couple episodes ahead of time. So
this is maybe the worst we've done in our podcast planning since we started podcasting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey.
I'm pulling late nights.
We are, yeah. We'll get back into it. We just have had a lot on the schedule.
And then it turns into, like 2-hour episodes or like 3-hour episodes.
Yes,
like
which also like we gotta figure out. I mean, I know people like it, but we gotta figure that out. So it doesn't help. I've been part of the problem is me. I'm training for a marathon, so that has been eating a lot of my time, and so that is on me. Sorry, guys.
Wow, how dare you be so selfish?
For a marathon. I don't know. Gotta brag a little. I haven't even run it yet, but I gotta brag.
And then Degenhart says on that same episode, the last one, I still hate Starling.
Yes.
Which is definitely valid feelings to have.
Valid and fair. I don't know.
I can sympathize and I can get in her shoes, but at the same time, she says some heinous stuff.
She's not good. She's not a good person. I think she is on the opposite end of the spectrum of like bad people that are like middle ground bad people. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but none are coming to mind. Maybe like, Hest?
No, he's like just bad.
No, he's the opposite end though. Like he's like a middle ground. He's not like the most heinous villain in the world.
Gotcha.
He's like not a good person, but he's like on the more evil side of that. Whereas Starling's not a good person, but she's on the good person side of that.
I got you. Yeah, there's 3 different things. There's good, there's middle, and there's bad. And
and they're both in the middle, but
opposite ends.
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Again, I'm just really into spectrums these days for some reason.
Well, thank you very much for that. Then we'll go to Facebook here.
And then on Facebook, Ellen also commented regarding Starling. and Starling's selfishness and being egocentric. The way you spoke about Chade's perspective of her, I actually started to think of her as less egocentric and more businesslike or professional. Her business and profession is to be a minstrel, to witness, to retell, and to find out where the things are that are worth to tell. She is industrious and committed in doing that, and she is still respectful and not telling the stories she is forbidden to tell. To be honest, I really think she is quite professional, though there's not really a line between the personal and the professional, and other people, Fitz, don't really get that that is her focus, I guess. Which maybe still makes her egocentric. Hee hee.
That is a very charitable way to look at that. And it is, I think, still egocentric, but it is from her perspective, from Starling's perspective, right?
Yeah.
That is like, no, I'm doing this because this is my profession. This is what I do, and you are ruining that. Which,
Yeah.
can be super frustrating.
I think that for sure there is an element to this that is sympathetic, that like at the end of the day, Starling is keeping a giant secret that would be a huge boost for her career. She's
Right.
already like the top of her game, so it's not like it's that big of a loss.
But she isn't going to be remembered yet,
no.
you know?
And so I think that like we should give her credit for that. However, she again says heinous things to Fitz and Hap and about them, and like is just overall not a great person. Outside of that, like she does have redeeming qualities. There are good parts of her, and I do think that her friendship with Fitz was beneficial for the time that they had it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there we should give her more props for keeping things professional on that front. You know what I mean? Like as far as knowing a ton of secrets about the Farseers and not telling them,
Right.
she's doing a great job.
Yeah. I think she values her friendship with Ketcherkin.
Yeah.
We don't even get to see it that much, which is, I feel like a big downside of her character is that is a big part of her character. We're told, we just never see it.
Yeah.
That she is like the favorite minstrel.
Right. And so you would think they have some type of and maybe
Even with Laurel, we get a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We get a little bit of interaction, even if it's off screen. We're just told about it. We just don't get much of anything with Starling.
Yeah. I don't know. But thank you,
Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah.
We also got a few emails. One is from Keith, who wrote in to say, Henja is using the skill pillars. In the next book, she does not join the Out Islanders on the way back, but then shows up on Elliania's mother's house island later.
Which is something I forgot, but good call out, Keith. Thank you for that.
And then Keith also says, I think you're conflating forging events.
Yeah, this is in reference to us talking about, Emma and me debating about the kind of instigation of the war and like the viewpoint of that when Elliania was talking to the Six Duchies people.
Right. And they were all upset because in the Six Duchy mindset, this is something that was brought on by Out Islanders unprovoked to them.
Yes.
Keith says, I think you're conflating forging events. Kebble Robred forced the other Out Islander clans to join him in the Red Ship War by forging their family members. The Pale Woman had learned how to forge people from studying the legends of previous Farseer/Elderling interventions and whatever skill knowledge Regal had sold her, which is true.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah, but I do think also that there is there was anger from the Out Island people because Kebble Robred did not start by forging people. He definitely got there, but he did amass a ton of people to his cause because of the discontent in the Out Islands about Six Duchies from what they have done in the past.
Yes, I believe we had an epigraph talking about Kebble Robred and how he gathered people. He was charismatic. And then eventually when he stopped focusing on the Out Islands, he recruited more people by coercing them.
Yes. Yeah. So there are definitely Out Islanders who were victims all around, I think. And there is that whole thing of he started forging them first and then came to the Six Duchies and did it again.
I still maintain, though, like, this was, I think, the crux of it. I still
Yeah.
maintain I don't think the stone dragons fully sapped everything of humanity from people they flew over.
Yeah. No, I think what Kebbel did was probably worse,
Yeah.
but I think that there was a similar aspect of it happening on the islands from the
Right. It just kind
dragons.
of continued, right? It was happening to the Out Island people by this one faction that was ruling them by fear and
Mhm.
forcing them into this war. And then when the war ended, their suffering, the regular people of the Out Islands' suffering did not end because these stone dragons were still flying over and taking down all the ships that they could and things like that.
Right.
And still sapping some memories and everything. So it did not quite end there.
No.
So there is a lot of misery that has happened in the Out Islands through this war as well. So
Yeah.
thank you, Keith, for reminding us of those facts.
Yeah, thank you. We also got an email from listener Joseph, who wrote in.
Talking about Fitz as a dad again, but specifically this book.
Yes.
And says that actually Joseph thinks that Fitz is doing a pretty good job, all things considered. And talks about how Hap is basically, according to the Six Duchies, considered a young adult, and Fitz knows that he doesn't have much control over him. Plus, Hap has basically told him that, hey, I'm not going to listen to you when it comes to Svanja. I'm doing what I want to do. I am going to make these quote-unquote mistakes, you know? So Fitz knows that he can't really control him in any way. So Joseph says, for example, if Fitz could force Hap to live with Master Gindast, but Hap would almost assuredly sneak away and get in trouble with Svanja anyway. One thing I really like about the writing here is that we get to hear Fitz's bad parenting thoughts, wanting to beat the sense into Hap for one. A really bad one that is coming up in the book is that Fitz begins to wonder if Hap is beyond help, and maybe Fitz should give up on him. But Fitz never acts on any of these emotions, and he ultimately makes some really good parenting moves with Hap before this trilogy is over. And I think that's true. He also, I feel like, gets nudged, especially with Jenna giving him that advice. That helps him a lot navigate the situation. But it is something that we always have to keep in mind. These books are inside Fitz's head.
Yes.
We get his rash, instant thoughts about things often. Rarely does he act on those thoughts unless it's Deerkin in the cave.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think that is a good point to remember that, like, if people could read my thoughts before I was speaking, I am sure there would be a very different perception of me. Like, sometimes we think mean or bad thoughts that are inside thoughts that don't need to be shared, you know? It doesn't mean that we're bad people or that we're making bad choices all of the time. I think that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
And I think it is very human to have, like, to be frustrated at somebody and to be like, man, I wish I could hit them, even if you would never in a million years do that.
Right.
Or, like, just, you know, have a rash thought like that. I think it's good to see a character have that. It does humanize Fitz. It does make him more realistic.
I don't think he's been the best parent this book, but I think he is better than we have given him credit for so far.
I feel like
I feel like he could have made a lot better decisions earlier
yes.
in the trilogy and he's better now. You know?
Yes, I will agree with that statement. I feel like he's doing the best with the consequences of the mistakes he's already made.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, forcing Hap at this point to live with Gintast isn't a great idea, but it wouldn't, if he would have just had Hap live with Gintast from the start, none of this would have happened. Like, there are choices Fitz could have been making early on, like you said, that I think would have been better. And
I will have to defend Fitz on that one, though. Fitz was literally gone from the village. Like, he couldn't.
A national emergency that only Fitz could solve. Like,
so...
listen, I feel really bad because I just need to say this because I think I've especially been trying to be good about it this episode, but I sometimes when I talk about things, I think I phrase them as though I have like an absolutist thought behind it of like, he's absolutely the worst. There is no reason for him to be this horrible. When what I mean is, I don't agree with the choice he has made, and I feel like he could have made a better one. And those are two very different things.
Emma's stories are great, as you guys have been listening to for a while, but everything is for story purposes, you know?
Yes. I mean, I'm really bad about saying what I actually mean and not what is the first. I don't know. The sensationalist. I would be great at a clickbait title, let me tell you. But so, like, yes, there are things outside of Fitz's control, and I acknowledge that, and I know that, like, but also he could have looked into apprenticeships at any point in the entire summer he had while Hap was gone to figure out what goes into apprenticeship, what's expected of them, he knew that the price that they had to raise to be an apprentice at Gintas's shop. Why didn't he see what the normal process was? So, like, he could have gone into it, like, even though he wasn't there to hand off, he could have said, when he gets here, please just get him to go into the apprentice quarters.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. Like,
but now, like, he's making better decisions, as we talked about. Yeah.
And he learns from his mistakes, which I appreciate. He does. I do think there is something to say about him understanding that you can't force kids to stop doing things that are bad for them just because you know as an adult it's bad for them.
Right.
Like, kids don't listen to reason, especially in the teenage years. It doesn't matter. If you can't convince them with reason, nothing you say is getting them. So I do appreciate Fitz, like, not forcing things on Hap, and I think he is a good dad overall.
The second part of Joseph's email here is about Sfanja, and we had asked a few episodes back about Sfanja's story coming up. We remembered very broad strokes from it, but could not remember specific details, and Joseph fills us in a little bit on that. And it's Sfanja's sailor boyfriend comes to town, and she spends all of her time with him, and it seems to me like they are maybe softly engaged. Hap takes Sfanja back after the sailor leaves, and she tells Hap she really loves him. Fitz later gives Hap the money for his apprenticeship when he leaves, even though he suspects Hap will let Sfanja watch over the money. Sfanja spends all the money. Hap loses the apprenticeship, and Sfanja leaves Hap. So that is a quick recap of what's coming up. I remembered the broad strokes. I remembered that, like, she was with the sailor. I couldn't remember exactly what happened. I forgot about the money part. But now that you reminded me, now I remember.
Yeah.
I was mad about that.
That was really annoying. I vaguely remembered there's something to do with money. I couldn't remember how the money got involved.
Yeah.
And then I knew that there was another guy, but I had no idea anything else about him.
So thank you for the reminder there.
Yes. Good refresh.
And then Joseph also wants to talk a little bit about Beloved. Because I also really liked when someone said recently about Beloved being possibly intersex. I love this theory and have suspected the same for a long time. Fitz never tells us any more than that Beloved has a very alien, my word, body and organs. I don't think this is what Hobb intended, but there is a lot of text that could line up with this theory. And lastly, I agree that it would be hard to imagine Beloved and Fitz as purely platonic friends. I personally think that Beloved loves Fitz completely, and Fitz loves Beloved in every way that isn't romantic. I think it is quite possible that Fitz loves Beloved more than Molly, but still not in a romantic way.
Yeah, it's so interesting because they do have such a deep and connecting relationship.
Yeah.
And I go back and forth between, we don't have to sexualize all male relationships that are deep, but also, like, I really do think there is a romantic element to their love.
Yeah.
And, like, even if it's not on a sexual level for Fitz, I think, like, there is a little bit of romance on Fitz's end, on my reading of it. I mean, like, he's constantly, I don't know, I guess it depends.
There's lots of scenes that we've talked about and will talk about, especially upcoming in the end of this trilogy too. Yeah. So,
but especially just, like, the scenes where they're sharing a mattress and they spend the night laying together, like talking, and yes,
Mhm.
you can do that platonically for sure, but I think it's just the way that they interact when it's just the two of them, and or I guess the three of them because Night Eyes is still there, but like it just is so
It's so intimate,
it
you
is
know?
so intimate. And I
Yeah.
think that's a very special bond that they have that is hard to describe.
Thank you for your email, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph.
And we also had some comments on Spotify here. Well, first of all, we had one on YouTube that I want to shout out. This is from somebody who I don't think is ever going to listen to our podcast, but this is Brax on YouTube saying, just pinging to let you know YouTube is showing your video on the algorithm. Not really sure why it was shown to me, but hey, good luck with whatever you're doing. So thank you, Brax. That's
Shout out
awesome.
Brax. What a
Yeah.
nice way to let us know we're on the algorithm. I love it. Very, very kind. A little bit silly and goofy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. I love it.
And then we also had quite a few comments on Spotify as well. So, first off, we had some comments on the latest episode. One is from Green Sky saying, I would have been keen on more tattooed chapters because we had that question about what we'd have liked to see more of in Live Ship.
Yeah.
And Green Sky says, we get a bit of insight into the slave trade from Wintrow's story, but it would have been nice to have somebody that was firmly entrenched in that society. And then also on Brashen and Sinden, I thought that Hobb did a pretty good job of showing how much an addiction can be intertwined with environmental and mental health factors. You see how his use fluctuates and eventually ceases as he grows into a happier, healthier person.
Yeah.
Really cool insights there. I do agree with you on the tattoo. I wish there was a little bit more insight into that as well. I mean, we want
Yes.
insight into every part, but I feel like
Yeah.
we mentioned the other factions of Bingtown, like the three ships immigrants. I mentioned a little bit more of the Rain Wilds as well, and the new traders. But yeah, the tattooed are also huge
Yeah.
at the end there.
It'd be interesting to get to see them in Jamalia and in Bingtown and like
Yeah.
see sort of a journey of like what they've gone through, and like I just think there's a lot that could be done there that would be very interesting.
Just like a small little interlude chapter or something.
Yeah.
And then the Brashen and Sinden comments, I do agree with you on that as well. I thought Hobb did it really well. I did notice from the other user how it kind of dwindled out of the book, but it also, as Green Sky says, coincided with Brashen kind of on the upswing,
Yeah.
coming into his own. So appreciated that. There was also a comment on that same episode 303 from Bastion, and says it's talking about the when Out Islanders consider a woman, right? And it was kind of that discussion that we were having there.
Yes.
And Bastion says, we actually know that the Out Islanders treat a woman's first menstruation as a sign of womanhood, as well as that Elliania has not yet had her period because when they get to the island with her mother house, she has the whole ceremony as declaring herself as a woman, which is where she bares her breasts and wears that head jewelry again, and that's where the pendant from Others Island is kind of mirrored.
Yeah.
Which forgot about.
Yeah,
so,
it's a good call. Thank you.
Good call there. Bastion also has some comments on 302 and 301. So episode 302 we'll start with 301 because that's part 1 of the chapter.
Okay, perfect.
Episode 301 is chapter 12, part 1. It's the Jack chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So Bastion says, I recently reread the series, and my version of Assassin's Fate says that Clef has a faint accent, but Fitz doesn't specify where he thinks it comes from. So the last book, he meets Clef and is like, this is a faint accent, but I'm not sure where it's from. Which is so weird because from everyone else's point of view, Clef is the only one with a written out accent still.
Yes.
But it also is probably a very jumbled version now because Clef was a young boy and now he's growing up around Bingtown people.
Right. So
and
it's definitely gonna
sailors
change.
from other lands.
Especially how young he is.
Mm-hmm. Which is like an interesting little thought. So thanks for that. And then Bastion also mentions that in part 2 of Jack that Bastion writes in about the tattoos before, and I feel like this is where I got my inkling. So thank you, Bastion, for reminding me about this. But Bastion restates the info that it's given at the end of Fool's Fate, and Beloved's tattoo is made with ink and was meant to mark him as Illustor's property. Elliania's tattoos were made with Illustor's blood, which is why they're magical. The thought of them being made with serpent essence is logical, but when B sees Vindelier's past, it looks like Dwalia is very secretive about its effects, and she hasn't shared it with the leadership of Claris. Which is really interesting to me. I feel like they would know about the effects of the serpent essence and spit, because they would be
Right.
the ones making the deals with Other Island. But either way, if that's not the case with this particular tattoo, thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
I did have that inkling that it was something to do with blood. I just could not remember.
Yeah. So thank you for clearing that up. It is good to remember. Also freaky because it does like go back to the whole whites are different than
Yeah.
humans. Because what do you mean their blood is magic?
Right.
Odd.
Mhm.
Giving dragon is all I'm saying.
So we also had a couple other comments on much older episodes. One is from Russell on episode 5, all the way back then. So this is also the kind of the discussion about when Fitz says mirror. And we talked about how it was mother in French, and like we didn't really know at the time when we recorded that episode, and other people wrote in about it. And Russell says, I always thought it was short for I'm here, calling out to Chade, which is also interesting because Fitz was like, I think falling unconscious or something, like he was hurt in some way. So
that's an interesting read on it. I like it.
Very nice. And then also we had one on episode 6. Yeah, episode 6 from Sarah, who says, I believe names are important, but people have forgotten why, which is why learned people like Fitz and the text he has read would think it a ploy for the commoners. We learn little of the old naming magic in the series, but we do know it is incredibly strong. We see how in this chapter alone, Verity portrays his name brilliantly by speaking the truth of what happened without thinking, while Regal is instantly concerned about how improper this is regarding the king and the royal ways. So I think that's really, really interesting there. And Sarah goes on to say Fitz and Molly learning their names on the same day. Because this is the same chapter where Fitz is in the market and his presumably mother calls out Kepit.
Yes.
And then Fitz goes with Molly to read the tablets that her mother left that Molly can't read.
Yes. And she's Molly Nosegay.
Yes, and she's Molly Nosegay. So Sarah says it's amazing that they learn their names on the same day, especially because their names mean roughly the same thing, beloved. No one in the series knows how the naming magic works, but I believe it is part of the reason for Molly to be the love of Fitz's life and why Fitz and Beloved feel like one person from the very first time they connect through the skill in terms of this magic. So cool. All of B's parents share a name. I don't know if I'm missing a meaning or if this was a translation thing in different books, but I don't believe Molly Nosegay means beloved from anything that I know personally. So please reach out if you guys know a different translation or anything. But I know the Kepit has been widely circulated in the fandom as like a version of an Old English word that means beloved, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a really cool connection, especially when Fitz calls Beloved Beloved. He's basically calling him by his own name. So doing the whole ritual thing.
Yes, yeah.
Which is very cool. But yeah. But also, you can't, come on, Sarah, you can't leave out Night Eyes. Night Eyes doesn't mean beloved. You can't leave B's parent. Wolf father. The fourth parent. But yeah, thank you very much for the thought. It's very interesting. We don't get a lot or touch a lot on the naming magic either, because we talked about sometimes in the first trilogy how Regal, like all the names are pretty much opposite of what they do, right? Chivalry ends up abdicating because he was not chivalrous and had a child out of wedlock, right?
Mm-hmm.
we have Shrewd, who ends up mentally declining and not being shrewd. We have Verity, who has to hide his in general, he's pretty, he speaks the truth about things and is very rather blunt, but he has to hide his like whole fate, right? Like
Yeah.
his whole fate ends up being a secret to save the kingdom. Regal is definitely not regal at all. But they're all at the same time, they do follow those traits. Like Chivalry was known for being chivalrous before that whole incident. Verity was known as being the blunt soldier. Regal does have the reputation of being the most royal and the most charismatic besides Chivalry, after Chivalry was out of the picture.
Right.
Shrewd does have the reputation of being a very shrewd and smart man. It is interesting that you get like all of these kinds of comparisons of the naming things, but it's not like nothing's ever spoken about from Hobb about naming magic. It's just things about names.
Yeah. Well, we do know from when we read the short story from the Piebald Princess or the Piebald Prince, that at one point, not that long ago, the Farseers were doing naming ceremonies still.
Sealing them
sealing those names of people. And I'm wondering if those still happen, because Fitz wouldn't be around for Dutiful's
correct
to happen, so he wouldn't be able to see. And also maybe no, he would probably not have been born till they got back to the castle. But I was gonna say maybe he would be too old to do the naming magic. But I don't know, because it has to be a pretty young baby.
Yeah.
And then Nettle, he would not have had that done to her, probably. It seems like it's more of a noble and specifically a Farseer thing.
Mm-hmm. He might be around for what is it? Prosper and Integrity? Are those the kids of Elliania and Dutiful?
Maybe.
But we don't get like that's a time skip period, right?
Yeah.
So we don't really get that either. So I don't know if they still do it. It's kind of up in the air.
And B doesn't obviously get
not.
one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, naming magic just kind of falls by the wayside after that first trilogy.
But there is still something to it, because the dragons still are trapped by name. They are still wary of giving their names to people. They don't like that so many humans know their names. And part of that naming magic comes through, which I think was a comment that somebody else had brought in maybe last week, when Nettle tries to trap Fitz in the dream world and can't because of not knowing his name.
I don't think it's specifically his name for that one. I think the name would have helped, but I think it's also because of knowing who that person is, right?
That's fair.
And not being able to kind of like, oh, this is, because she pictures him in like a wolf form.
Yes.
And Fitz is like, this is not me.
But
I think the name would have helped.
A name, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think also, like, if you think about every time Fitz is saved or saves somebody else from the Skill River when they're falling apart, the name is like the most integral thing to keep them together.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I don't know. But anyway, good idea. I like it though.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone who has commented on Spotify. Green Sky, Russell, and Bastion.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. It's always fun to hear from you, and we can't wait to hear what you say next week.